Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 55th episode of In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is the 17th of June, which is also Eat Your Vegetables Day. So make sure to boil that broccoli, steam that spinach, and roast some radishes today, and enjoy some lovely fresh vegetables this evening. My name is George Glass. I'm an Associate Managing Director in the Cyber Threat Intelligence team. This week, we are joined by Ryan Hicks and Laurie Iacono from our Cyber Threat Intelligence team. As always, we'll be covering the most recent trends our intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's get onto this week's situation report. Last week, Kroll released an out-of-band for CVE 2024-4577, a remote code execution vulnerability affecting PHP installed on Windows operating systems. This week, there have been reports of Tell You the Past ransomware being deployed using this vulnerability just 48 hours after the release of the security update. According to Imperva, the threat actors use Windows MSHTA exe binary to run malicious HTA files that contained VBScript code. This in turn loaded the ransomware to victim device memory with a ransom note asking for 0.1 bitcoins, approximately $6,500 for the decryption key. Kroll continues to monitor the impact of the ransomware campaign. However, this quick turnaround continues to highlight the urgency to patch against this and similar vulnerabilities. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. So let's get into today's briefing. Today, we're going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. I'll be covering June's Microsoft Patch Tuesday and a POC exploit for an authentication bypass in Veeam. Ryan will take us through his research into ClearFake in the Malware Spotlight. And finally, Laurie will be covering this week's Ransomware Roundup. Now, let's talk about these vulnerabilities. Taking a look at June's Patch Tuesday, this month there are 58 vulnerabilities addressed by Microsoft in total. 25 of those are privilege escalation and 18 of them remote code execution. And I want to talk about 3 of these vulnerabilities in a bit more detail. Firstly, CVE 2024-30103, an Outlook remote code execution vulnerability. And this vulnerability allows a threat actor to bypass Outlook registry block lists and enable the creation of malicious DLL files. According to Microsoft, the vulnerability can be exploited by a victim viewing an email in the preview pane, thus making this a zero-click exploit. However, some of the mitigative measures provided by Microsoft say that the threat actor must already have gained access to an Exchange account with legitimate credentials to exploit the vulnerability. But as is usually the way with Patch Tuesdays, more technical details have not yet been provided. And so we must assume that the fact that this could be a zero-click vulnerability and should be addressed as soon as possible. Next is CVE 2024-30078, a remote code execution vulnerability in the Wi-Fi networking stack on Windows, enabling an attacker in Wi-Fi range of a target to execute code on a given endpoint. And of course, that poses quite a lot of risk to employees that may be traveling, working on a train, a coffee shop, going to a conference, for example. And again, in this particular case, there are no more technical details to share about this one, but indeed could present a very large and significant attack surface. Finally, CVE 2024-30080 with a CVSS rating of 9.8. This is a vulnerability in MSMQ, or Microsoft Messaging Service, allowing remote code execution. Notable applications that utilize this service are Exchange, MS SQL, and Active Directory, all of which are highly lucrative targets for attackers, of course. And gaining code execution on those devices around those applications can, of course, lead to elevation of privilege, exfiltration of sensitive data, and so on. Taking a look at the attack surface for this vulnerability here, we have some data from Shadow Server and our showdown scans of the internet. And you can see that this is a very target-rich environment. A lot of those endpoints appear to be in the Asia-Pacific region, but of course there are nearly 60,000 exposed endpoints in the United States and just about 3,000 in the United Kingdom. Our results show that there are significantly more in the APAC region when we did a showdown scan. But of course, because this is a sort of a built-in capability and is often exposed to the internet, we see this as being, highly sought after by threat actors to build an exploit for this. According to the discoverer of the vulnerability, the mitigations provided by Microsoft as of June 13th are insufficient, and Microsoft also lists this vulnerability as likely to be exploited. And so patching really is the best course of action here. Just ensure that these exposed instances, A, do they need to be there? And B, if they are, make sure they're patched. And now on to Veeam. A critical authentication bypass vulnerability tracked as CVE 2024-29849 with a CVSS score of 9.8 was discovered in Veeam Backup Enterprise Manager versions prior to 12.1.2.1.7.2. An advisory was released for this on the 21st of May, and this vulnerability resides in the REST API service, which listens on TCP port 9398. The exploit involves sending a specially crafted VMware single sign-on token to this service via the Veeam API. And proof of concept code has been uploaded to GitHub by a security researcher from Summoning Team. Updates have, of course, already been released as part of the 21st of May advisory and should be applied as soon as possible. And of course, similarly, it's important to never expose such services to the internet if you don't need to. Okay, let's pass over to Ryan to talk about ClearFake. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, George. ClearFake is the term used to describe sort of the malicious JavaScript framework that we see deployed on compromised web pages, which is used as part of drive-by-compromise campaigns, typically to deliver information stealers. And what would happen is the user would visit a legitimate but compromised web page that contains the malicious JavaScript. A pop-up or redirect would occur, and that displays a fake update banner. And if a user interacts with the banner, it could then kind of initiate that compromise. And the first thing to mention here really is the ongoing use of the Binance ether hiding technique. And that's found within the embedded JavaScript itself on the compromised web page. And this kind of JavaScript facilitates the fetching and presentation of the fake updates prompt. And that's using the Ethers JavaScript library, which is the kind of code on the right there. Alongside using the BNB smart chain, which is a smart contract system for cryptocurrency. And here the JavaScript initiates a request to a cryptocurrency contract, which is held on a legitimate cryptocurrency domain, which is that Binance.org. And the contract itself is kind of actor-owned, that it holds malicious codes or a malicious domain, and that's then sent back to the victim's browser and presented as the fake pop-up or whatever they need it to. And this way is kind of interesting because as a threat actor, infrastructure is in a way sort of hidden, almost kind of bulletproof hosting in a way, behind the extra layer of that legitimate domain. And in this way, the threat actor can change what is loading at any given time. They don't have to kind of go into and change the compromised web page because it's always going to be pointing towards that Binance domain. They just need to adjust what is on that contract and depending on what they want to be delivered to the browser. If we go to the next slide, please. So something that the Kroll SOC observed last month is this new method that ClearFakes uses to trick users into running malicious code. And that's the pop-up on the top right there, which you can see is very direct kind of messaging, getting the user to kind of click copy, open PowerShell and run the code. And of course, our observations and other examples samples that we've analyzed. The copy code is similar, but does have some slight variations. So this is perhaps where the kind of changes over time may have happened. But in all cases, the code kind of looks similar to the bottom right. So that's the exact kind of code when the victim clicks copy. That's the string that they have to paste in, minus some of the base64. And firstly, it spawns ipconfig to flush the DNS. It also changes the value of the clipboard to be blank, which effectively kind of deletes the copy code. And the bulk of the executed code is held in that CRT variable, which is just, I've just sort of redacted that to, but that would be a huge base64 encoded string. And within that string are really just the sort of follow-on actions after ClearFake, which we saw being info steal activity, again, expected really after ClearFake. And some of those actions includes the use of NetSH for information discovery, as well as the execution of AutoIt and a number of .au3 scripts. And those were used for a number of things: credential access, gathering browser information, querying for antivirus, and before then gathering and deploying further payloads. So the change in tactic really for that kind of more direct approach is kind of interesting in getting the victim to manually run the code. It's really kind of likely an effort to potentially evade existing detections and reduce the number of files that are required during that initial kind of infection process. Whereas other ClearFake examples we see would have kind of the zip file being downloaded with executables, getting users to run those. It really just sort of gets straight to the point with getting a user to sort of fall for copying the code straight in, and also getting the user to open PowerShell straight from the start menu, which would be spawned from Explorer. Is also less likely to appear as suspicious when kind of doing sort of threat hunting or anything like that, compared to if PowerShell was spawning from these kind of strange malicious executables that we previously have seen. And just at the bottom there, I just included some monitoring detection opportunities surrounding that campaign. The actual kind of Binance domains themselves to alert and block for can be found in the weekly report. And that .xyz domains interesting that typically a lot of the redirects to show the user the pop-up on the top right were held on sort of .xyz domains. So yeah, certainly kind of alerting around any kind of connections to those. Yeah, that's all for me. I'll hand back to George. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Really, really appreciate it. Now, Laurie, we have some new ransomware groups and some collaboration going on in the underground. Please tell us more.
We absolutely do. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is a new group. So this was a new leak site as of June. This is a group that's calling itself El Dorado. Its leak site does not give a lot of information about the group as of now, but what was interesting was there are already 15 victims posted on that site. So this is one that we'll be closely monitoring. There has been a lot of changes and disruptions in the ransomware ecosphere in the last few weeks with some disruptions and some of the ransomware groups kind of going offline. So it'll be interesting to see if this is a completely new group or a rebranding perhaps of another group that we're already familiar with. The other update I had within ransomware was a well-known group. Actually, go back to the next slide. This was from last week, I think. The Ransom Hub group, they have attracted affiliates from the Scattered Spider group of threat actors. So Ransom Hub had recently made some offerings on the forums. They had offered trying to make their ransom payouts a little more attractive. They had offered a 90-10 ransom split for the affiliates. They were also offering some incentives such as paying the affiliate first. So basically, like the affiliate would get the profit before the operators, and this is possibly in the wake of some recent complaints on the forums about some of the larger groups doing exit scams and not paying out their affiliates. So it does seem like this has attracted some of the members of Scattered Spider. Now, for those of you not familiar with Scattered Spider, this is a group that we track as KTA 243. They're mostly known for initial access methods such as SIM swapping, socially engineering, help desk, tactics like MFA prompt bombing, callback phishing are rife with this group. They're most well known for last year's attacks on MGM resorts and Caesars. There has been a lot of news has just been kind of percolating about this group over the past few days. There was an arrest with one of the members, which we will be kind of monitoring that to see what impact that has. And there are also several reports that this group has been switching to targeting cloud applications for data theft as part of their attacks. So a lot to watch there within the ransomware world, and I'll hand it back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Laurie. Super interesting stuff. And thank you to Ryan for also presenting today. That's all we have time for this week. If you have any questions or comments, please do reach out to us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. Have a great day.